he will go on keeping his side of the covenant. But he still expected certain things of us. And since he promised the survival of life, he expected us to treat life as sacred. And he makes it quite clear, if you read Genesis 9, two things, one connected with human life and the other connected with animal life. From now on, animals could be used for food, for meat, but they must be properly slaughtered. And the way that was put in those days was that the blood must be drained. You must be absolutely sure that the flesh is dead before you eat it. And so the blood was drained so that nobody was tempted to eat live flesh. That would be to lose respect for animal life. But when we come to human life, God expected us to treat human life as sacred, as something in the image of God. However bad a person may be, they are made in the image of God. They are sacred. And therefore, to murder is sacrilege. And if we are going to maintain the sacredness of life, God tells us he expects capital punishment for murder. Probably the majority of countries in the world now no longer practice capital punishment for murder. And in America, I would think some states do and some states don't. Which is the majority, I wonder? Whichever it is, you're divided on the issue. God is not divided. He says, I will sustain life, but you treat it as sacred. My country abolished capital punishment for murder in the 1960s. And as soon as that happened, I said to my wife, we've lost the sacredness of life. Murder is now simply theft. And the punishment for it is the same as for serious theft. It is no longer regarded as sacrilege, it is simply stealing a life. And therefore life imprisonment is the punishment, and it's rarely a whole life now. But when that happened, I said to my wife, the next thing will be abortion, and the next thing after that will be euthanasia. It's bound to follow. Once you no longer see life as sacred in the image of God, then you will destroy your own youngsters. You will destroy the elderly once they've got a bit useless. And sure enough, it's happening right now. We have lost the sacredness of life. Now, that was not a condition of the covenant. Otherwise, God wouldn't be feeding us now. It was an expectancy that he hoped would follow, that we would treat animal life and human life with respect, and human life particularly is made in the image of God. Unfortunately, we've got so brainwashed in a sense by evolution that we're simply animals, that we no longer draw a clear distinction between animals and humans. But in the Bible, they are very different. Animals do not bear the image of God. We do. That is why murder is sacrilege. And a life taken should be paid for with another life taken. But even though we no longer keep this very widely, God keeps his covenant. It was unconditional. And we know exactly how long it will last, as long as the earth remains. And the earth is still here, and we're still here. God has kept his promise. Now, why did he promise to do that? Because if he hadn't, he would never get his family. He wants sons and daughters in his family. He wants human beings to relate to him. He constantly says in the Bible, all the way through, I will be their God and they will be my people. That's what he wanted. A bigger family, relationships. And so he's got to preserve the human race or he won't get any more in his family. That's the basic purpose. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to enjoy myself or, what is the wording? Right to happiness and all the rest of it. That may be true in the American Constitution, but that's not why God put you here. He put you here to find him and be his family. And until you find that, you'll not find the purpose of life, because there isn't another purpose. Right, that's dealt with the Noahic covenant. Now I've caught up with where we left off earlier this morning. So let's look at the next covenant he made, rather later than Noah. He made it with a dear old man who was living in a brick-built house with lovely fireplaces and bedrooms upstairs, a 2-story brick house, I kid you not. If you go to Ur of the Chaldees, there are the most sophisticated brick houses you've ever seen. 4,000 years old. I got a photograph of one and showed it to my wife, and I said, "How do you like to live in that house?" She said, "Bit old-fashioned." I said, "It should be. It's 4,000 years old." And an old man who lived in a comfortable brick house with lovely fireplaces. God said, "I want you to live in a tent for the rest of your life." I don't know many 80-year-old men who would leave a nice house and live in a tent for the rest of their life, and not only live in a tent, but go far, far away to a country he'd never been, never seen, leave his friends and relatives behind and go. And that dear old man went. And had he not, we wouldn't be here today. Abraham is the father of us all, says the Bible. And he was. Just one old man leaving a pagan place with its weird gods and goddesses and setting off on that long trek at that age, and with his wife that age too, and going to a place they'd never seen. Because Abraham trusted and obeyed God and set out on the journey, God said, "I'm going to make a covenant with you." And it's an amazing covenant. It was a covenant of selection, not survival, but selection this time. To select Abraham and his descendants to be special people. And God repeated the covenant with his son, Isaac, and his grandson, Jacob, with 3 generations of men. God married them. For a testament, a covenant is in a sense a marriage. It's an I will. Now, why did God choose them? Were they better than anyone else? No. In fact, they weren't very good people. All 3 of them lied, deceived others to save their own skin. You read the story. They're not great, good people. The only thing about them that made them unique was that they did what God told them. They trusted and obeyed God's word. That's all. And for that reason, God made a relationship with them. And amazingly, God took their 3 names into his name. And from then on was always known as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. That's the name in Hebrew. And he took their names for himself and is still the God of those 3 men. If you want to know which God we're talking about, it's the God of those 3 men who obeyed him and became his heirs. And he said, "I'm leaving you a land in the middle of the world that's yours forever." And the interesting thing is though Abraham